The Irrational Confidence Podcast.
All right, Fresh, let's go to our number 24 team. I was a little surprised that the Oklahoma Sooners made our top 25. There's a lot to like about Oklahoma. Picking up Mater in the transfer portal. They have Ott, the running back, coming in from Cal. Brent Venables at Oklahoma, he's got the extension. They're not going to move on from this guy. Oklahoma had a really rude awakening going into the SEC last year. But again, I also think like Lincoln Riley did them no favors. There's a huge exodus of talent when he left there, and they're kind of scrambling to pick up Venables. I think Brent Venables is a good coach. I'm leery whether or not he is a great coach for Oklahoma. I love this. I love Sooners. I think Oklahoma's a great program there. I'm just worried that they're eventually going to fall in no man's land there. They're coming off a year where they're 6-7. Had some nice wins, but again, bad losses, and a lot of guys have hit the portal. What you got with Oklahoma?
Well, I think John Mateer and Jay Knott really gonna have to give this offense a boost and a brand new offensive coordinator. Coming over from Washington State, bringing the same offense as Mateer, spreading it out, a little more high flying. The biggest question has always been the past few years is ever since Lincoln Riley left, the receiver talent is just
It's been
non-existent.
awful.
Deion Burks expected a lot of things from him. He's got to step his game up and completely outshine what he did last year. And the rest of the group's going to have to show up and make plays, catch the football, you know, get make explosive plays in the passing game. I think Mateer is going to be able to navigate the spread very effectively. I think much better than Jackson Arnold did last year. And then how do they work Ott in? I think Ott being a
Right.
solid running back at Cal is going to give the defense, give the safeties and linebackers something else to look at, where it's a legit threat in the backfield that they're going to have to pay attention to. So it gives you a little bit of balance the offensive coordinators can work with. So they're going to have to play at a high pace and really operate very effectively. You're not going to see, it's going to be a lot of high percentage throws, a lot of put the ball in space, let the guys make plays, and then take a shot here and there. And different than a Lincoln Riley who likes to take more shots. I think you're going to be a little more patient with the offense, especially early, and then let it develop. A lot of time possession, manage the down and distance, and then be decisive when you actually go for a deep ball or try to stretch the field, not just winging it and just chucking it for the heck of it. So this offense will have a new look to it, a new refreshment for the Sooner offense, which has always been a very flash in the pan kind of a deal for the past 20 something years. But I think last year was just a major dud. They put a lot into Jackson Arnold. He was not ready. They didn't have any talent offensively. They didn't have a running back that really could take over. It was just a complete mess. And I think that goes back to what you said, Lincoln Riley leaving a disaster when he left a couple of years ago and really depleting the depth on that offensive side of the ball. Brent Venables is not a head coach, in my opinion. He's a defensive coordinator. So
Right.
I think him going back to just calling defensive plays is going to help. Him having basically an offense that's going to be like, all right, you do your own thing, get it taken care of. And then having a brand new general manager of the entire football program coming over. The former director of Reach Senior Bowl, after that was over, took the job, is now just the GM basically of Oklahoma football, handling all the off the field stuff, helping organize recruiting, taking that pressure off of Venables, I think will allow him just to coach. And coaching the players, I mean, at Clemson, he can coach defense. We're not arguing that. But I think letting him all the extra stuff that was going on really weighed him down. He was not able to just coach the team. The defense played well as the season went on last year, especially versus Alabama. So if he can really just focus on defense, let the offense come along, trust his quarterback who's a little more experienced than Jackson Arnold, things will start picking up. The schedule, though, even with all that, the schedule
Brutal.
I think it's actually much more difficult than it was last year. And you're losing Danny Stutzman and you're losing Billy Bowman Jr. to the NFL. So your two studs on the defense are gone. Now, you have Kip Lewis, which is great, but now you're really relying on R. Mason Thomas,
Mhm.
Abadawar, and then
Dalton.
Mr. Floater over here, Marvin Jones Jr., coming from Georgia to Florida State and then Florida State and out of Oklahoma. Who's going to be your pass rush? The three of them have got to step their game up. So they're got to help at all different levels. I think the secondary will be okay, but that front seven, they're going to have to make some serious strides and improvements to help boost this defense. And it's also, how does Venables scheme them up? Get them in positions to be successful. There's a lot, all the moving parts have got to be in sync for this Oklahoma defense to take the next step. Look at, I mean, at worst, to start the season, they should be 3-2. That's at worst in the first 5 games.
Yeah.
But then October 11th through November 29th, you have Texas at South Carolina, Ole Miss at Tennessee, Then you have Alabama, I believe. Let me get back real quick just to make sure my mind's running correct. At Alabama, Missouri, and then at LSU. There's not much of a break. Outside the Missouri game, I'm gonna say it right now, the Missouri game is probably the break in that entire stretch. They're gonna have to be locked in and play physical. This team could be 6-6 and actually play better than their
Right.
record. Might be better on the field than they were in 2024, but the record could be the same. That's a weird kind of statement, but the play, the effort, because last year the South Carolina game they gave up. They looked defeated a lot. This year, the team might be a lot better and play a lot more efficient and clean football and make the opponents work for it. Because even if you look back on that game, we talked about when Tennessee went to Oklahoma early in the year, we thought Tennessee was going to beat the brakes off of
Right.
them. Nico was trash right then and there because that team did not look good offensively. Tennessee's defense played well. They won a
Hmm.
game, but they didn't dominate. That should have paid more attention to Tennessee at that point, and also giving Oklahoma credit that they have talent on defense. The offense is terrible. So if Mateer and I can make jumps, the offensive line can play better, and the receivers can actually catch the football. I think this will help propel them. The ceiling is 9 wins. 8 is probably the sweet spot for this team. 8-4. That Michigan game is really going to tell us what we need to know about this Oklahoma team.
Right.
If they can beat Michigan, that's going to say a lot. If they play well with Michigan, because I think we're going to see a different kind of Michigan offense, but if they can play well with them, we'll know. If they get their doors beat off by Michigan, then we'll know Oklahoma's just a fraud and maybe Venables is going to be done at the end of the year. But that game's really going to tell us where the team's going to go when they hit SEC play later on.
Fresh, it's so difficult for me because I could see this team being 3-3 in SEC play and being one of the feel-good stories of college football this season, especially if they go like if they're 8-4 with this schedule, it's an impressive feat. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is arguably the hardest schedule in college football.
I
But
think them and Arkansas have a good argument for that.
yeah, and I look at this and I go, I put for like my toughest stretch, I put Texas after. Like
Basically, what I have the gauntlet.
right, you could take any four games in the last 7 games and you just take your pick which four you want to pick out of there and say this is their toughest stretch. Interesting kid that I'm intrigued with, and again I'm not going to reiterate what you said, especially with the quarterback coming in. Coming in, if they can kind of unlock the magic that he had as a freshman over there at Cal. I know he's battled injuries in a couple years with that. Sharp, the tight end, Bauer Sharp. This kid could be maybe a difference maker, especially we've seen it in years past where teams that, especially take a look at Penn State last year, Michigan a couple years prior to them, when you don't have elite wide receiver play or above average wide receiver play, and that's going to be the big thing for Oklahoma. What can you do? You're going to lean on your running game and you're going to lead on passes to your tight end. Sharp could be that playmaker for them and could probably pad his stats to being one of the better tight ends in the SEC because of the fact is that they lack the wide receiver depth. They really should need to have this. Again, you talk about Deion Burke. I would love to see more out of him, but until he shows me something, like it's Sharp and then a bunch of dudes. And show me something, especially week 3, was that week 3 or week 2 they get the Wolverines in a Norman there. You got to show me something with them. I think absolute best, everything goes right. I put 8-4, 9-3. I think 9-3 is a pipe dream, but again, if everything works out for them, they're going to play Texas tough in the Red River rivalry. That game is Texas is the better team, obviously, but the, crazy things happen in that football game. They're going to be dogs in every single game in SEC play, with maybe the exception of the Auburn game. Like they're going to be home underdogs.
Yeah, and even last year, they just there were games they probably didn't expect them to be in, and they were in. And there's games they expected to be blowout, and they were a very weird team. There was just games where they just did not show up, and then there's games where they go, well, Oklahoma's had to play today. It
Right.
was different. Like the South Carolina game and the Tennessee game are two great examples. They played their hearts out versus Tennessee, and they got the trash beat out of them for South Carolina. I think the defense for South Carolina are still scoring touchdowns right now. Then they play great versus Alabama, but in other games you're like, what the heck is happening?
Right.
Did they even get off the bus? And I think that also goes back to Venables not being the greatest coach, not having faith in his offensive staff, trying to do too much, and not just coaching defense. And I think that's where he's in over his head from that perspective. So hopefully, with with different restructuring in the whole entire football operations there, that gives him a little bit more to focus on. I'm going to be a leader on Saturday, but I'm going to coach my defense, and we're going to try to play that approach and not be overwhelmed myself.
Yeah. And I don't even want to say what my worst case scenario is because I absolutely think the world of Sooner fans, man. Again, they deserve better, but, it is what it is. We're here for it. I say
So
eight,
if he's 4-8, he's fired at that point.
probably. I can't see Venables keeping his job at 4-8.
I mean,
I just can't.
we're in a state right now with college football. If you're at a big mid-major programs you got 3 years, and if you're struggling or not improving, you're done. Like last year, I think Billy Napier, he was given reprieve because the schedule was brutal, and the actual team
Right.
made progress late. This year, I think Napier's on the hot seat because he doesn't have that excuse anymore. Like
Right.
Venables, you've got to have this team improve a little bit, or that's going to heat up because Oklahoma football, the fan base, you spoke of the fan base, there's proud tradition in Oklahoma.
It is.
They do not,
Very
they don't
proud.
want to fall behind in the SEC. Even if we had 20 playoff teams, I don't think Oklahoma would be a playoff team. Like you can't be in that conversation. If there was 20 playoff teams and we're not a playoff team or even in the conversation, that's when at a high level team, you're in a fireable position. And that's where I think Oklahoma fans are like, look, if we're not even in the conversation, it's time to exit and purge and recycle.
Yeah. And the fact is that they'll probably see Texas be in the playoffs again, and that's just got to eat Oklahoma fans alive.
Yeah, that's yeah.
It's rough.